David and Goliath is a famous, beloved story that we have in the Old Testament. And it's a story I thought I knew really well until somebody pointed out something that I had overlooked. And I think a lot of people overlook in the story itself. It had a powerful effect on me, and I hope it has a powerful effect on you. The story has actually three parts. Part one is the giant and his challenge. Part two is David meets with King Saul. Part three is, where David defeats the giant. But it's part two. As someone pointed out to me, something I had missed. It started when I was a new seminary teacher. Okay, there were two brethren in the building that I was hired to teach in that first year. Amazing teachers. All the students wanted to be in their class and not necessarily in mine. There were great teachers in that building, and I was not particularly one of them. So I determined I was going to stand by their door and listen. I was going to sneak in on their classes and see what they were doing that made them so popular. And then I would try to imitate those, bring those teaching styles into my own class to see if I could draw more students, be more effective. Well, after a little while, I discovered I was not really having any success in doing that, and in speaking and bemoaning my cause with one of the other teachers in the building. He said something that kind of hit me right between the eyes, kind of like Goliath. He said this to me: "Tim, don't wear Saul's armor." And I said, I don't think I know what you mean. He said, "You're better with a slingshot." And I said, I don't have any clue with what you're trying to tell me. He said, "Well, maybe it's time that you read the story of David and Goliath a little more closely." Okay, so I did. Went to my office, started to read about the giant and his challenge, part one. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. Well, I realized I didn't really know how tall that was, so I looked it up, and a cubit is commonly the length from the elbow to the tip of the middle finger, about 18 inches. That's a cubit. And then a span, it's the distance from the tip of the thumb to the tip of the pinky when your fingers are spread. There's the span. Okay, 6 cubits and a span. So got out my calculator and discovered that Goliath was probably about 9 feet, 9 inches. Yeah, that would be a little intimidating to fight that guy in the army. Let's see what his challenge was. "And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel and said unto them, Why are you come out to set your battle in array? Why are you coming to fight us like this?" Set your battle in array means to line up your armies to get ready to fight. "Am I not a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Here's my challenge. Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us." Well, you ready to fight this guy? Yeah, no one was. "And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were sore afraid." And he gives this challenge day after day, until one day someone comes into the camp that he's unaware about. It's David, just a young shepherd boy who's been guarding his father's sheep and has been sent to the army of Israel to bring food to his 3 older brothers who are soldiers. David's not there to fight, but he listens to this challenge given by the Philistine. "And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God?" And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul. Take this thing that he's been saying to Saul, and he sent for him. Well, now you're into part two of the story. David meets with King Saul. What happens there? "And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine." Well, what are you thinking if you're Saul and you see this little shepherd boy going up against this giant of a man? "And Saul said to David, Thou are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. Thanks for your courage, David, but it's a little bit too much. Well, David will take occasion to tell King Saul why he's not afraid of the giant. He tells him on an occasion where his little flock that he was guarding was attacked by a bear, later by a lion, and he kills both with his slingshot. He's not afraid of the giant. David said, moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. Saul must have been at least a little convinced, because he says, and Saul said unto David, go, and the Lord be with thee. You're going to need his help to pull this off. And then he has an idea. And Saul armed David with his armor, his own armor, and he put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. Well, how does David respond to this? He's never wore armor before. You think he's comfortable? He's not. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. I've never worn armor before. Okay? I'm not comfortable in this. I don't know how to use it. And David put them off him. He knew what he was good at, and he knew that he couldn't use those effectively. And so he goes into the battle with what he's good at, a sling and 5 smooth stones. He's come to defeat the giant, unafraid. Well, how does Goliath feel when he sees him? And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy, still had a little pink in his cheeks there, and of a fair countenance. And the Philistine said to David, come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air and to the beasts of the field. How does David react? Then said David to the Philistine, thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield. That's your armor. But I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts. That's his armor. The God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. And all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. And he does. I love that picture because it illustrates who David is giving the glory to. He defeats Goliath. It's with the gifts God's given to him. So, my question, what was my fellow teacher trying to help me understand about this story? Saul's armor, the slingshot. He was trying to say to me, Tim, you're better with the gifts you have. Don't try to imitate and wear something Saul's armor. Try to do what they're doing. You're good at what you do. Magnify that. In fact, he spoke to me about gifts God has given me, and that would be amplified as I came upon this scripture in the Doctrine and Covenants later. For all have not every gift given unto them, for there are many gifts, and to every man is given a gift by the Spirit of God. We all have gifts. You do, I do. They're different. Okay? Why are they different? To some is given one, and to some is given another. Why? That all may be profited thereby. Sometimes we covet each other's gifts instead of magnifying and playing our own gifts, having God help us to use those. I see youth who look around and just don't feel that as they compare themselves to others, they don't feel that they measure up. I'm not as smart, I'm not as handsome, I'm not as athletic, I'm not as beautiful. And that carries even into adulthood, where we feel like we're not as good as someone else, not as successful, don't have the nice house. There's good counsel that President Uchtdorf gives us when he says this: we spend so much time and energy comparing ourselves to others, usually comparing our weaknesses, the gifts we don't have, to their strengths, the gifts they do. This drives us to create expectations for ourselves that are impossible to meet. As a result, we never celebrate our good efforts, the good we can do with our gifts, because they seem to be less than what someone else does. We have to concentrate on the gifts God has given and use those. Elder Maxwell said this: The Lord knows our circumstances and the intents of our heart, and surely the talents and gifts He has given us. Thus, yearning for expanded opportunities while failing to use those at hand, the gifts we have, is bad form spiritually. What a blessing this was in my life. That first year, what I learned, that teacher taught me that first year through this story, affected the next 36 years of my teaching. The reminder from him, find your gifts, magnify them with God's help, and be careful. Don't put on Saul's armor.